Recovering from trauma has to do with you properly prioritizing yourself and refusing to be dragged into stations in which you self sabotage. It's important to understand that you are a life form, you are a life force, you matter, you're important, and you need to prioritize yourself and you need to deeply learn to value your peace. Peace is more important than happiness. Peace is more important than love. Peace is more important than many of the things that are largely broadcasted on social networks. Now, a lot of people only realize the value of peace when for years they are at wars and battles within themselves. And finally, when they emerge with victory, then they get to realize the value of peace. So if you have been through significant trauma, maybe you're coming from a highly verbally abusive dysfunctional family, maybe your marriage did not work out, maybe you are having a serious illness that keeps you awake at night, whatever the matter is, learn to protect yourself. Do not be like a sponge that takes in the harm and then carries on, and takes in the harm again and then carries on and then keeps on collecting harm and distress and pain, and eventually finds himself filled with internal problems that come out in later chaoses. What does that mean? It means that when you find yourself in an environment in which you are dealing with a difficult, negative situation, learn to neutralize the matter as much as you can. Do not become a storehouse of negative, distressful elements and matters to a point you have nervous breakdowns and you constantly live with a lot of inner disturbances and you constantly live with a lot of psychological hurt and emotional chaos. Do not live like that. If you have been through trauma, your job is to learn to psychologically cleanse yourself and constantly, with belief, with hope, with structure and firmness, tell yourself that everything will be absolutely all right while working towards development, working towards healing, working towards self-respect. It's very important to understand that the matter of self-respect is a matter that has to do with the foundation of your personal development. The more better self-respect you assume, the more better boundaries you will be able to produce for yourself. The better the boundaries, the more things will be structured, and you will have a healthy understanding of saying yes, and you will have a healthy understanding of refusing that which is not good for you. You will not be dragged into things because you're such a nice person and in the background you're having your trauma that is guiding you, so people misunderstand your silence as if it's a yes when you're just at loss of words. You're just battling your anxiety and outwardly people think that you're a serene, calm person. Please do not live like that. Remember that you matter. And it's 4:27 in the morning. Why do you think I'm recording this? I'm recording it for you because you matter. All right. It's important for you to realize that the more you learn to understand the way you function, the way you act, the way you behave, and how your human nature comes into play, the more you will be able to set up a healthy sense of priorities, and you will have cope-up mechanisms that are actually good for you, that promote well-being. And by the way, it's important to constantly reflect when we talk about the matter of cope-up mechanisms. What does that mean? It means that you have to evaluate the functionality, the operative power of your cope-up mechanisms, okay? Because one of the things that happens to people when they have had significant trauma, they have been using some of the strategies that were working very well in the past, but they are no longer functional and have become toxic, and they get in the way of them building healthy relationships with other people. For example, if you have been a teenager, you have been a young lady, and you came from a highly verbally abusive and emotionally neglectful, gaslighting, narcissistic family that was doing a lot of bad things to unintentionally ruin your mental health, and you build a lot of walls and a lot of guards to protect yourself. If you're not mindful, you can take all of this baggage in your marriage even if you have totally healed. Really. Marriage is a totally new start. It has different ways of approach. You're going to be living with a new person, and this person is not used to of many of the things you do. For example, if your parents raised you and there were some abnormalities you were practicing in the house for a couple of years, they will get used to it, okay? But when you bring all of this to the table when you're getting married and you do abnormal things, this will be strange and this will be disturbing to your spouse. So maintain yourself on regular basis and carefully find out what has been working in the past and is no longer needed, what is actually needed, and what you should develop more in order to function in a better way. Now, trauma itself is something that can be totally erased from the way it hurts you if you develop enough. I'm not saying that some of the flashbacks cannot come back here and there. What I'm saying is the intensity and the heaviness of trauma can be totally dispersed if you choose the model of healing and personal development, not that of medications. Sometimes medications are required, but I have mentored people for a significant amount of time. And I know human biology, human psychology, and human nature in the context of trauma for years. Okay, I did not ever suggest to anybody to take a medication. And the people that come to me for such sort of help that are working with me, the success rate is 100 out of 100%. Why? Because the hormones, the chemicals, the cellular structures, and the powers and the regulation and the blood structure that is needed, all of it is mostly inside you. Yes, sometimes the medication is needed, but mostly what I have seen is if you do a remarkable job in surrounding yourself with good books, having your sunlight, having hydration done properly, going for a brisk walk, taking care of yourself, sleeping on time, you're going to find out a lot of your trauma is going to fall off like dead leaves from the tree. And never ever say about trauma that is a part of you. Okay, do not identify yourself with trauma and always see yourself as a different being from trauma itself. Why? Because when you start to see yourself and trauma as one identity, it starts to incorporate and integrate within your nervous system, and naturally it affects your perception. In simple words, if you start to say things like trauma is a part of you, you are further deepening its roots inside your perception, which will affect your behavior, your choices, and the way you sense and feel. Your emotions will be affected. So just because you have trauma does not mean it consumes you. You are you. You are not trauma. Trauma is something you deal with, just like you deal with sleep, just like you deal with dehydration, just like you deal with exhaustion. Now, when you understand trauma like this, you will be able to take control and power and strength in your own hands. Okay? Now, this does not mean that the job is super easy. Anything that has to do with severe trauma is usually hard. But I promise you, if you sincerely ask Allah for help, have trust in Allah, and do your part, and commit to healing, development, and growth, you will find that eventually, within 6 months, you will be a totally new person. Within just a matter of weeks, you're going to see changes you have never seen before. If you change your routine, you learn every single day, and you choose to design your future deliberately. You have goals, you have objectives within those goals, you have deadlines. When you function like this and you are using your creative energy and your focus to design, naturally you will find that the energy you have is going to be more and more active towards building, which means you will not be as active towards contemplating in a negative way what happened in the past, because you will be too busy designing what is yet to come. So learn to take care of yourself. Always know that you're a special being without tilting towards narcissism or arrogance, but learn your value. Learn to see yourself as an individual and develop your originality, develop your personality, and learn to love yourself. Learn to respect yourself. If you do not communicate self-respect adequately to yourself, you're going to find out that other people are going to manipulate you. Really, the energy you send out and the way you present and hold yourself. Other people unconsciously pick on your body language, they feed off your energy, and eventually they start to treat you in a way that is coherent and compatible with how you feel about yourself. So feel awesome about yourself. Never be one of those people that are constantly scanning for what's negative and complaining and constantly causing issues for themselves by looking at what is going wrong instead of focusing on what is going right. Focus on your goals and then focus on the obstacles that have to be removed once you have established your long-term goals. Okay? So now when you deal with obstacles that come your way, you are dealing with them with the intent of moving forward. You're not dealing with those obstacles to cause drama and pain for yourself. You're dealing with those obstacles so that you can grow, develop, and move ahead towards the accomplishment of your goals. So my advice to you is that you should be filled with love, filled with hope, filled with happiness. And it's important for you to realize that the most trustworthy is only Allah. I'm telling you. There's no one more trustworthy than Allah. Trust the plan of Allah. Repent sincerely. Ask Allah for help. And stay very close to your religion. Okay? Because trauma is one of those things that can cause a lot of problems in the context of clarity. Because it can keep you really occupied. It can suck off your creative energy. It can waste a lot of your time. So what you want to do is to not make trauma strong unintentionally. You lock it in a small sphere and you deal with it in the context of its reality. Okay? Because if you're not careful, you can exaggerate trauma and you can make it more larger than it actually is. Because you, on a dull, low volume and intensity level, just keep it in the background. Bring it in the forefront of your awareness and deal with it. And realize that you have the power to move on and change your life fantastically. Truly, you can do this. But in order to do this, you need to be firm. Regarding making decisions about trauma and generally in life, a lot of people, what they really do, they half decide. They don't decide fully, they half decide, which means they're confused or they lack clarity or they are jumping from one choice to another. Do not do that. That's not good for your brain. Take sufficient time to make a decision. Get the data, get the information, get the knowledge you need. And once the decision has been made, be firm on that decision. Once you have objectively selected a rationally right, balanced course of action, stay on it with firmness. Okay. Now, the more you cover the mileage of your development, the more you are going to start feeling better in the context of elevated self-respect. In simple words, your self-respect is going to boost based on your ability to complete what you promise you will do for yourself. So do not plan your day in a way that you know you cannot actually manage. Okay. Many of the people, they're failing in their days in similar ways over and over again, but they don't change their strategy. They still make a giant plan and they fail in most of the things, and they're piling up these A4 size printer papers on which they set their goals, but they're not winning. Do not fall in this category. Stay strong, stay focused, and have full belief that you can totally change your life, and trust Allah and move ahead with knowledge and discipline. This is the path.